Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the iPhone 12 and compare it against the iPhone 12 mini and see which particular iPhone is a better one for you. Now, here's the thing. If you're going to compare these two iPhones, there's not really too many insane differences between these two. Clearly, if you want the better one, there's not really going to be one that's exponentially better than the other one. And that was the really nice thing about the mini lineup. When Apple was going through and making that mini lineup, it was actually very cool of being able to go through and basically get a device that was very similar to the other device, like the bigger one, without having to go ahead and get a way bigger device. So that was something that was really cool going on for that type of device. As of this point though, if you're going to go through and pick up either one of these phones, you can go through and buy them in the links down in the description, where you can get that from there and you can help support the channel at the exact same time. Now, starting off with the outside of both these particular iPhones. The iPhone 12 mini, both these phones came out in 2020, but the 12 mini on the front side was giving you this 5.4-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. And this type of panel, as you can probably imagine, was a very, very good panel for the time, right? It wasn't 120 hertz or anything, but it was a good looking device nonetheless. And I definitely do think if you were to go through and pick up a phone, this thing, for it having such a small display, but still giving you this kind of nice display, was actually something that was actually very, very cool. And that was something I really, really enjoyed about this particular iPhone. It gets fairly bright for the most part, not that bright, but 1200 nits for a 2020 phone is not terrible. But you're still getting the notch up top, a little bit of bezel around it, but it's not really anything super crazy. With the iPhone 12, all you're getting is just a bigger size display here. So the 12 is giving you a 6.1-inch Super Retina XDR OLED display. So the same brightness, 1200 nits, same, refresh rate. So everything there is pretty much exactly the same. It's just a bigger size panel. So if you were somebody who wanted a smaller size phone, then the mini lineup was really nice because you were getting the same resolution, same everything. It was just a smaller display. Whereas on the iPhone 12, it's a little bit of a different story, where it's a little bit bigger, notch still basically the same size, but it was a bigger device, which some people may have preferred. On the bottom, you're getting a lightning port, which is great, flat sides all throughout. On the back side, you're getting the standard glass back, which looks and feels very good. I love being able to go through and get this glass back. And I think that in and of itself was a nice thing going on for this type of device too. You're getting that dual camera setup, and overall on the exterior, these phones still hold up fairly well. You're getting the MagSafe capability, IP certification, wireless charging, still lots of good stuff to really appreciate between these two devices. So when I take a look at the outside, that kind of covers it up there. But there are a few things where this type of device doesn't necessarily hold up that well when compared to some of the competition and some of the major flagships nowadays. So with something like the Samsung, with something like both these phones, the iPhones, you have to remember that these phones are missing out on high refresh rate panels. That right there can be kind of a disadvantage. You're missing out on things like, USB Type-C, things like that. There's a lot of, things that we have nowadays on most phones that this device doesn't have. So that is one of those things you're going to have to keep in mind in the back of your head as well. So not the biggest deal in the world, but one of those things that you might notice. When it comes down to the price tag, the iPhone 12 mini cost about $188, with the iPhone 12 cost about $230. So definitely a little bit of a difference when it comes down to the price tag here too, because the iPhone 12 mini, it is a little bit cheaper overall than the iPhone 12. So that could be a little bit of a disadvantage there too, if you're wanting the iPhone 12 because it is more expensive. But I will still tell you, when it comes down to it, from what I can see, something like the iPhone 12 mini is still going to be giving you a pretty good price tag, and same thing with the iPhone 12. Now, when it comes down to the overall, price tag and the camera and everything like that, the iPhone 12 and the 12 mini have basically the exact same type of camera layout. So you are really not getting any big difference here when it comes down to the camera layout, as far as I can tell. They are built almost exactly the same. So from that side, you're going to have to kind of keep that in mind, that whichever device you're pretty much going to be getting, you're pretty much going to be getting the same type of experience on both, as far as I can tell. So that's not really a bad thing either, but you're just going to have to remember that if you are going to go through and pick up a device, you are definitely going to be getting the same type of camera layout. So number one, keep that in mind. Number two, another very big thing is that if you are going to be using, let's say, something like an iPhone 12, you're still getting 4K at 60 on the front and the back, if you're going inside of like social media applications like TikTok and Instagram and those things, this camera is still going to perform okay, but it's missing out on things like cinematic mode. The cameras nowadays are much better than this thing. Like this thing definitely kind of does show its age quite a bit. The photos tend to be a little bit more grainy, but it's not terrible. And if you're just kind of looking at it as like a budget tier phone, then both these cameras might do okay for your needs. But keep in mind that might not be what you're trying to go for, but possibly for a lot of people, you might be okay with this type of camera as well. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there as well. Now, when it comes down to software longevity, both these phones are identically the same. They have the same internals for the most part. So one phone isn't really going to outlast the other one when it comes down to that side. So kind of keep that in mind. However, there are a few things to keep in mind here. Number one, if you are wanting the longer lasting phone, you're not really going to find that here. You're going to find that in the next generation, which is going to be something like an iPhone 13 or an iPhone 14. Those phones are going to be the ones that are going to be lasting longer. But these devices still have about like 2 years of software updates, maybe 3 if we're lucky, but most probably 2 years of software updates ahead of it. So that might be a really nice thing going on for this type of device when it comes down to it. So from that side too, that kind of covers it up there. But the biggest difference that you may have seen is probably when it comes down to its battery. The battery inside of the iPhone 12 mini was about 2,227 milliamp hours. The iPhone 12 was 2,815 milliamp hours. So that right there was a pretty big difference in and of itself. So you were actually going through and getting, a bigger size battery inside of the iPhone 12. So that right there, it is a pretty big difference in and of itself. Like being able to go through and get that bigger size battery inside of that type of device could mean the difference between going through and getting this type of device, from a price tag standpoint, especially when it comes down to its capability from the camera side. So that right there was a pretty big thing. So kind of keep that in mind. Again, not the biggest deal in the world, but one of those small things you might, kind of end up running into there. When it comes down to the performance as well, these two devices are, almost having the same type of performance when it comes down to it. So they're both giving you the Apple A14 Bionic chip inside. They're both giving you 4 gigabytes of RAM. So from that side too, realistically speaking, you're not really missing out on anything here as far as we know either. They're almost the exact same type of layout, the exact same type of phone as well. So those are, again, just some things you're going to have to keep in mind there, because within these types of devices, you're getting the same type of capability, same type of speed and performance, but that's not a bad thing either. Like these phones are going to be giving you a pretty good experience overall, and that's something that's nice. So you can go through and still use these phones from a price tag standpoint because the performance is still pretty decent. So it's not super terrible when it comes down to it that side either. So overall, to kind of sum up this whole entire video, what I will definitely tell you is that something like an iPhone, 12 or 12 mini, these are pretty decent devices, right? They're not like terrible, and I do think they still hold up fairly well. I will say though, if I'm going to pick up one, it might be something like an iPhone 12. I'm okay with buying like a bigger sized phone. I think those types of bigger devices tend to do better for me, but I still appreciated Apple making this mini lineup and still supporting them for as long as they did, because these phones, even though they don't make them anymore, you could still go through and buy them, and they're still probably going to give you a pretty good experience when it comes down to it. So if you're okay with upgrading though, I'd recommend either going for the iPhone 13 or the iPhone 13 mini. I feel like those ones would probably be giving you the overall better experience. But even from that point, you can't really go wrong with this type of device either. So from that side, that kind of covers it up there for the most part. If you have any other thoughts or questions, please let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.